Hi there, I'm Eric Francis. Welcome to another edition of Planet Waves TV. This edition is for Sunday, the 17th of April, in the year of our Lord, 2016. Welcome. I'm here to talk about Mars retrograde. And as part of Mars retrograde, I'm going to talk about Sagittarius and Scorpio, where Mars will be retrograde. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mars, and then also about how to put these things together and add a few astrological concepts to help you think in a more holistic way, to think in a more kind of complete way about what your astrology is about and what this astrology is about. To do astrology, it's necessary to have an open mind and to be circumspect and to remember that symbols do not ever have precise meanings unless you're talking about something really concrete like a dollar sign, and then it means something different to everyone anyway. So bear that in mind. We're not talking about any kind of an exact science here. What you're getting is, my opinion, in effect, a work of interpretive fiction. So let's start with a couple of ideas. First of all, Mars is stationing retrograde, or stationed, depending on when you're seeing this, on Sunday the 17th. And what that means, in effect, is that the Earth is passing between the Sun and Mars. So Mars really isn't doing anything. It really is the Earth that's taking the action here. And what the Earth is doing is getting closer to Mars, basically, by passing in between Mars and the Sun. And this is called Mars retrograde, but it's not really that well understood, nor is it intuitive. And so it helps to think of basically, not using a few examples here. Let's see, what can I get to here? How about this yellow thing here to represent the Sun, and this red thing here to represent Mars. And Mars is further out from the Sun than the Earth, and so the Earth goes round, and then every now and then, every 2 years, the Earth passes in between the Sun and Mars, and then it goes going around this one, right? Here we go. This is the more accurate version of it, right? And so when the Earth is in this position between the Sun and Mars, that is called Mars retrograde. That's the visual effect, and it looks like it's going backwards in the astrological chart. If you're reading the chart every day, you'll see that the longitude of Mars is going in the opposite direction that it normally goes, which is forward, and now it's appearing to go backward. But remember, the Earth is the thing passing between the Sun and Mars. And so what that indicates, depending on your interpretation, depending on how friendly the astrology is either some form of Mars getting cranky, or some kind of a review of all things that are involved with Mars in your life. And the things that are involved with Mars in your life are initiative, desire, I'll read them out loud, passion, sex, wanting sex, desire, ambition, impulse, anger, and fear. Now, Mars can represent a number of emotions in the fear dimension, such as guilt, but it's doing so typically when it's turned against itself. It's important to remember that. When Mars is working assertively, it's outwardly, and when Mars is balanced, Mars will seek to attain or achieve or connect or something like that. Let me get a little more light here. It's getting late in the day. I like natural light on my video. No lights in the studio. Okay, and so you want to use Mars basically for your ends. Mars is your tool. Mars is your desired nature. Mars is your impulse to succeed. It is your drive. Now, I explained this a few times. I'm not suggesting that a planet up there in space is sending us ray beams and making us have desire or want to fight with one another. But what I am saying is that this is a symbolic system. So always keep that in mind with astrology, and that it's also interpretive, and that's the reason why that different astrologers have different opinions, because they are opinions, right? Important to keep that in mind. Okay, so and by the way, I have been spending a lot of time thinking about this, because for the last couple of weeks I've been recording 12 videos, one for each sign, as part of the 2016 spring reading, where I break this down for you by sign and by rising sign. Each video is 30 to 35 minutes. They are great. I was video averse a couple of months ago, and now I am like all in on video. So I've been sitting in front of this camera for a lot of days, and here we are. So this is a kind of a summary that we should probably include with it. This is a little bit different kind of chart than I normally use in Planet Waves TV. Typically, I've been using these computer generated charts. This is more of a diagram that shows you the relationship of things in the chart. Now, typically, when astrologers think of an opposite sign, they think of, for example, Sagittarius and its opposite sign, Gemini, right? Because they're opposite one another along the same axis. I would note that the idea of studying things in a way that is what you might call axial, to use a word that Rick Tarnas likes to use, on an axis, is not included in classical astrology anywhere that I have seen. There are hints at it in that planets will behave differently in one sign than in the other. But the idea that you use an axis to integrate the concepts, for example, of Sagittarius and Gemini, or for example, of Scorpio and Taurus, for example. Well, I didn't color in Taurus, but is a distinctly modern idea, and we find it, the concept that we integrate opposites, in this weird little book called Esoteric Astrology by Alice A. Bailey, which came out in approximately 1950, and which takes it's thick. It's like 600 pages, and you really makes you think. It takes a while to read it. Like, if you read it in less than 6 months, you missed it. And if you, take 6 months and read it like 2 pages a day, 3 pages, 4 pages a day, and that will be plenty. Unless the book lights on fire in your hands, which it did for me, and I've been working with it since like 1998, earlier. Considerably earlier. And one of the concepts in esoteric astrology is the integration of opposites. The one thing you find out is that any two signs along an opposite axis have a lot in common with one another. They more function as one system than as two separate things. So the integration, therefore, is pretty easy if you begin to see, for example, Scorpio and Taurus being one system, Pisces and Virgo being one system, Gemini and Sagittarius being one system. It's a great way to think astrologically, and it will kind of feed your astrologic mind. However, what I'm here to tell you today is that there's another kind of opposite, and we're going to be experiencing that kind of opposite all through the Mars retrograde, and that is the opposition of adjoining signs, by which I mean Sagittarius and Scorpio. So no one really thinks about what signs located next to one another, quote unquote, mean, what they're really about, but they really are much more opposite than signs that are on an axis. For example, on the Sagittarius Gemini axis, both are mutable signs. Both are masculine signs because they're either a fire sign or an air sign. So they're two very important properties they have. They're on the mutable cross, and they're both masculine signs. However, if we take two signs that adjoin one another, for example, Sagittarius and Scorpio, well, Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign, and Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So they're neither of the same element nor of the same cross, triplicity and quadruplicity. And the crosses are talked about a lot in this in this book, which you should take at least 6 months to read. All right. Oops. Get that light back there. Okay, so what's going to happen, what is happening and what is going to happen is that little Mars here, come on, there, just, okay, I can see, and I can see what I'm doing, is starting its retrograde here in early Sagittarius, and then it's going to move into late Scorpio, and that's going to take about 72 days. Mars is retrograde for 72 days every 2 years. It's retrograde the second least of all the planets. Venus is retrograde less than Mars. I guess about 8% of the time. Mars is retrograde about 10 of the time. So it's an unusual condition. And it's a condition that we can feel, and it's a condition that deserves to be responded to. And the way you respond to it basically is to slow down, to cool off, and to review. And so there is a review phase indicated. As you may know, I have a Course in Miracles program called the Miracle Hour. And one of the things the Course in Miracles does is it inserts review periods approximately every 3 weeks of lessons. You'll do 21 lessons, and then a 1 week review, 21 more lessons, and a 1 week review. And you kind of get in the habit of doing these review phases. And then if you take up the study of astrology, you realize, well, these inner planets go retrograde periodically. For example, Mercury's retrograde 3 weeks out of every approximately 4 months. That's Mercury review phase. Mars retrograde is a Mars review phase. And what Mars represents is all of these things here that it's good to review initiative and desire, passion, sex, ambition, anger, fear, drive, violence, and energy, how all of these things manifest in your life and in your heart and your soul. And where they're going to be retrograde is in what I am saying is a super interesting place in the chart. It's super duper interesting because typically Sagittarius represents all things spiritual and Scorpio represents all things sexual. So when I say that adjoining signs are opposites of one another, that first of all, I don't think it's some kind of necessarily organic thing that like grows like a crystal, but rather it's a description of society and the way that the institutions of society define these things for us, and to some extent then how we experience them. And we tend to experience that which is sexual as antithetical to that which is spiritual. Let's get some more light on the subject here. Good. Better. To that which is spiritual. And it's really annoying because it's not true. In fact, sexual and spiritual are neighbors. And there is a very thick gray area between Sagittarius and Scorpio. And guess what? That's where Mars is going to be. It's been there for a while, and it's going to be there for a while. Basically, this whole process ends later, much later in the year, sometime during the summer, when Mars finally clears the degrees where it was retrograde and then moves on. So we are getting an extended period of what you might think of as Mars working the borderland between the realm of the spiritual and the realm of the sexual, and that is called Tantra, where you look at sexuality as being an existential thing, and you look at spirituality as being an existential thing. These seemingly separate things, sexuality and spirituality, actually contain one another. They are neighbors, and Mars, the planet of desire, passion, sex, ambition, impulse, anger, fear, drive, and energy, is going to be beginning its journey in the spiritual realm of Sagittarius, where it is now, and ending its retrograde journey in Scorpio. So there's the integration, there's an exploration of where these ideas and where these concepts meet and match and how they inform one another. The other thing I've been mentioning about Scorpio is that it really is a biological experience. It really is about the feeling of, wanting to fuck someone, the feeling of wanting to eat. Scorpio deals with primal emotion, the very most basic primal emotion, and it's why Scorpios are so compelling. It's why there is so much mystique around Scorpio. Scorpio also deals with matters of death, and Sagittarius deals with matters of spirituality. So think of how much spirituality is a response to and a reaction to the fear of sex and death. And so now what Mars retrograde is basically doing for us is taking us on a little tour of all of these values that we have. And they manifest in a different way for every sign. So for example, were I reading the chart for Aries, I would start here. And then were I reading the chart for Taurus, I would start here. And then were I reading the chart for Gemini, I would start here, because you start the chart on the left-hand horizontal axis, and then were I reading the chart for Cancer, I would start here. This is the sign Cancer, and this Leo is here. And so you can see that this little stretch of the sky where Mars is going to be retrograde moves for each of the signs of the zodiac. It turns around, and it therefore has a completely different interpretation for each one of the signs of the zodiac. That's why these readings about the signs of the zodiac work pretty darned well. You don't necessarily need Bono to write a song personally for you, but you can certainly have your own favorite song. And what I'm trying to do, and pretty well succeeding, I'm told, by my readers and my clients, is that I'm telling the story of this Mars retrograde as it manifests for each of the signs. And this is sort of, you might think of, where the deepest concepts of sexuality and spirituality meet one another in your solar chart, and then what's going to happen on that really precious border region between the two signs. Now, one of my unwritten articles and unwritten videos, unspoken pictured videos that I'm going to do soon, and going to start right in this very moment, talks about the border region of houses. It's a story of how houses aren't clean dividing lines as illustrated in the chart by a line. For example, in a typical astrology chart, these black lines are house divisions. But the thing, and the sign divisions aren't illustrated. House divisions are there's a estuary area between one house and the other. For example, I'm in kind of a art studio over there, kitchen there, and another art studio there, and a workspace here. There's not, in my life anyway, maybe I've got boundary issues, firm divisions between these things. But the reality is that the home morphs into the art studio, and the art studio morphs into the workspace, and the workspace is where we meet people, and that meets the house of relationships, and then we form commitments and bonds in the relationship, and that takes you from the 7th to the 8th, and so forth and so on. So there's a gradient basically illustrated by the houses, and to a real extent the signs, and Mars in retrograde in Scorpio and Sagittarius is working this borderland between sexuality and spirituality. And I assure you that everyone on this planet could benefit from experiencing more directly what I will call the spiritual nature of sex and the sexual nature of spirituality, or what you just might call an honest approach to existence. And we're kind of getting this trip where we can't really separate these things now, because Mars is going to infuse itself into both of these things, and it's going to kind of go back into Scorpio, like this. It's going to upside right. It's going to go from Sagittarius, this kind of realm of spirit, into Scorpio, this realm of sex, and like gather up all of this sexual, hormonal, biological, love and death energy of Scorpio, and then go direct again and convey it back in. So there's basically a kind of reality test of our beliefs going on here. And one of the ways I've summarized this is, first of all, Mars retrograde in Sag is about questioning beliefs, and we question them till we get to the biological core of our beliefs, and then Mars stops there, and then it comes back into Sagittarius, and then it's as if it reinforms our beliefs. We can form a new set of beliefs are temporary, hopefully pending information, beliefs around what we learned during the retrograde. That's basically what you get. I have these nifty tarot cards. We're kind of out of time in this format, but I might come back and do a second video if my very hardworking video team has time. But this is an illustration of Sagittarius. It's the art card from the Crowley Tarot. This is an illustration of Scorpio. It's the death card from the Crowley Tarot. Notice, by the way, the reference to biology, DNA, double helix, and the skeleton's alive. This ain't no dead skeleton. First of all, he's moving, and second of all, he's black, not white. Nobody has black bones. That is an illustration of a living inner entity that is alive. And then Mars is illustrated like this in the Crowley Tarot. You might not have known that tarot cards, particularly the major arcana, contain illustrations of the astrological signs and many of the planets. All right, don't forget to click on that thing where you can get my spring reading, because right now through late in the night on Sunday. It's $37 for all 12 signs. Then it's going to double, and then it's going to go up even more, and then we're going to sell the signs individually such that buying 2 signs will be the same price as buying all 12 signs now. So I've got a programmer in Rhode Island working on making my thing, and you have interest and early information. You know that this is at its lowest possible price now. We call this the Burning Man approach to buying tickets, and it's good. It's going to be really good. I've worked hard on this, and it is, in a sense, my video reading debut, and I have kind of come out of the closet as a video person. That's a long story. I once did one video project that landed me in the New York Times twice, and I surprisingly hadn't maintained my devotion to video, but here I am, and lots of video, 12 half-hour readings that you will love. And if you want to get all 12, because you're going to hear one, and you're going to want to listen to another one and another one, and they interweave. They're very well done. They are upbeat, and where I like some kind of self-esteem guru or something like that, I would be charging hundreds of dollars for these, and I may yet figure out how to do that. But for now, affordably priced, $3 a sign. That's really good to get all this. All right, listen, thank you for watching. I'm going to click on the done button on this thing, and I will see you next sometime late Sunday, early Monday with the spring reading, and then also the Miracle Hour comes out on Sunday morning on planetwaves.fm, as does Planet Waves FM itself comes out on Tuesdays. One last thing, please subscribe to my YouTube page. Apparently, if you get enough subscriptions, you get to customize your page. We only need 500. We're very close, so just click on that subscribe button. It doesn't cost any money. I don't really think anything happens. Maybe you're notified by Google or something like that, but we will get additional privileges on YouTube, including the ability to customize our video channel. And also note, we've put up all of 2016's Planet Waves FMs on our YouTube channel. So we are growing. Things are happening. Planet Waves is leading the way. It's good to be with you. Bye for now.